Good evening, everybody. I'm Keanna Faircloth, host of The Pulse and Afternoon Jazz on WBGO 88.3 FM. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. We have a very special edition of The Pulse in store for you all tonight. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I have an amazing violinist and composer by the name of Tomoko Omura, who is here with me. She, if you are not familiar with who she is, Strings Magazine says she's, quote, a gifted composer and passionate instrumentalist. And I'd have to agree. She's touted as one of the leading violinists, one of the leading voices in violin that is today. And she's been named a rising star by Downbeat magazine by the prestigious Critics' Choice poll for 4 years in a row, from 2015 until 2019. She's a product of the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and she's worked with some amazing, amazing artists in her career so far, from Matt Glazer to George Garzone, Rob Thomas, Paquito de Rivera, Camila Meza, Aubrey Johnson. The list goes on and on. Her forthcoming album, which is called Branches, Volume 2, pays homage to her Japanese background. It's a series in her Roots. It's a part of a series, her Roots series, which you may be familiar with. And it comes out on June 18th. So we're kind of getting a sneak peek into all that is Branches Volume 2 and the wonderful musician that is Tomoko Omura, who joins me right now. Let's bring her in here. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? Thank you for being here on the Pulse.
Good. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you. You are really just an incredibly thoughtful composer and violinist, and your music really just pays tribute to your heritage, your Japanese heritage. And you've sort of always stayed true to yourself in the process of creating in all the music that I've heard come from you. And so I just want to thank you for staying true to who you are.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Thank you for checking out all the music.
Absolutely. You're kind of creating a buzz, if you will, in the industry. Just recently, the Recording Academy, the Grammys, just featured you on their website. How did that feel to be sort of tapped by the Grammys for your new project, which has yet to come out yet? It comes out June 18th.
I'm extremely lucky, and yeah, I was surprised that to be there. Just very, very, very lucky. So yeah,
I'm always
grateful.
interested to find out how folks found themselves playing the instrument that they do, whatever that may be. So I'm wondering, for you, Tomoko, did the violin find you, or would you say you found the violin?
I didn't find it. My mother was a violinist, and she's a teacher mostly for classical. But I grew up listening to all her students taking lesson at home, and and that's how I started. And I didn't choose to be playing violin. Actually, I sometimes wish that I wasn't playing the
Yeah.
violin, but it just happened.
It just kind of fell in your lap. It sounds like it's in your DNA. To be honest, you had no choice.
No, well, I had no choice because I think the violin was the instrument that I can play the best among all other stuff. But I I don't think I'm a natural violinist. Like I really struggle sometimes, and I wish I was a different instrumentalist, and that's my struggle. But I stuck with it. I think it's like because it's like I don't know, it's coming from my mother, and it's just somehow I stuck with it.
It's funny because some of the greatest musicians sort of say that same thing. Like, I don't feel like I'm great at what I do. You're always so humble. The musicians that are the best, I feel.
Well, it's a truth. Like I don't feel like I'm yeah, I'm a natural player, so that's my struggle. But I like creating music, and writing is just a tool for me that I could do better than other things. So
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
what other instruments? You mentioned other instruments that you played growing up as well.
I played piano, and I loved piano because I can, like it's like an orchestra by yourself. So
Yeah.
I can hear every part. So I still play that like when I compose. Um, Also, I played drums. I played also
Wow.
percussion. I was in the marching band. I played everything, from trio to bass drums to cymbals to yeah, all the things. And also, I was so into Baroque recorder. Very, very into it. That I was actually giving concerts when I was in high school.
Wow.
I thought that was gonna yeah I thought I was gonna do it, but then it didn't happen. Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting. So you're
Yeah.
multi-talented. Do you ever employ any of those instruments into your work now? Do you find yourself, voicing chords on the piano when you're composing?
Yeah. Definitely piano and the drums are helping. Recorder I haven't incorporated yet in my music. Maybe somehow but yeah, those experiences are very, very helpful for composing, especially.
Yeah. Let's talk a
Mm.
little bit about your composition process. For this album, you've sort of combined Japanese folk songs and folk tales and all of that with original compositions as well. How did you go about choosing how you would merge your original compositions with those traditional folk songs?
Hmm. Folk songs arrangements are continuation of my last album, my second album called Roots, and it's a sort of a same. It's a stretch of that process, but I take the melodies, and melodies are so strong that I just try to make it um, as interesting as possible in this like modern days. So like I take out a lot of I change the rhythm, I change the harmonies and everything, and then make a bass line and different sections in the music, and try to make it, yeah, as interesting as possible. For the folk tales, I I chose the stories that I really liked, that
Mhm.
I inspired, and I combined with some of the Japanese traditional musical elements, like Japanese scales, like the traditional scales, into the melody. So I modify those Japanese scales into um, to create new melodies, and then combine with rhythms and yeah, and then harmonies, the knowledge, harmony knowledge that I have, and then just mash up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. We heard today, Come Firefly debut today on Afternoon Jazz. And for me, that's one of,
Oh, thank you.
absolutely, it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. And for me, one that stands out on the album because of the way the rhythm is ever changing, it seems. But it reminds me of a firefly, like the pulse of a firefly. You can actually, I imagined
Oh,
it, I'm visualizing it as I'm
the
listening.
rhythm of the lighting. Yeah,
Amazing. So, are you
that's great.
always inspired by those stories that you heard, those folk tales growing up? Is that something that you find yourself, especially in today's world that we live in, do you find yourself sort of gravitating towards those lessons in those folk tales, those Japanese folk tales?
Um, I like all sorts of stories. In general, I like stories, not only the folk tales, but folk tales are just, like very condensed, and the message is so strong that the story is short, but it's been told for a long time that the message is so strong, and I feel like it's universal that people can relate to. Um, and sometimes other cultures have similar stories, so it's interesting to compare. Like the animals are like humans. Sometimes interact with humans, and stuff like that is not only Japanese. And I thought that's a good thing that unite people, and it's
Mhm.
interesting for people to listen to, and then sort of follow the stories with the music. So
Yeah,
I like storytelling in music, so I combine them together.
absolutely. And you mentioned how, some of these stories are really universal. It's just so interesting how we really are more connected than we are different in this world. If you think about, Japanese folk tales, there's some African folk tales in that whole griot tradition that are very similar to that of those Japanese folk tales. So really, I feel like what you're doing in the series that you have here musically is sort of bridging the gap between cultures in a way. I don't know if if you realize that that's what you're doing. Was that intentional?
Yes, I wanted to dedicate to my Japanese audience first. That was like my maybe intention at the beginning of maybe Roots project. But then I perform more often in the States more than in Japan. It's just because I live here in Brooklyn, and I always explain what the songs are about, what the stories are about, and I always get the response from the audience that they can relate to the stories, and they find
Hmm.
something new and interesting and laugh about it, and it's very easy to communicate, and I like that about. So I want to, yeah, I wanted to make that as like a project.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're telling these stories through your music and sort of, especially in the wake of, Stop Asian Hate and everything that's unfortunately going on in this country as it relates to people of Asian descent. It feels like a very intentional stance that you're taking to sort of, create harmony between folks through your music. Is that one of the goals with Branches Volume 2?
I think the timing was very sort of coincidental, but because I recorded this music in 2018, the end of 2018. So I've been doing this for a long time, but I yeah, I definitely want to connect connect the cultures. I think I'm connecting the Japanese culture and American culture by combined, but I think it's also it can be wider than that, because yeah, the stories, and also I'm playing with the musicians from New York, you know, and yeah, I hope this is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely creating those connections between, your home and America. Let's talk about your musicians that you have with you on this particular project.
Mhm. I have Jeff Miles on guitar, and Glenn Zaleski on piano, and Pablo Menares on bass, and Jay Sawyer on drums.
You all have been together for quite a while. It feels like you have this synergy that's sort of been brewing and growing even more in sync with each other over the years. Would you say
Yeah,
that?
yes, we've been working on the music for a long time, and they've been very patient with me, and they worked hard, and very passionate to create this together, and they gave me a lot of ideas, and um, we did a lot of live shows, and like some of the songs have like 14 versions, Um,
Wow.
and it was the process, and we all went through together. And so I feel like I feel so grateful, and they're like my family.
Awesome. I can feel that through the music. You all really seem interwoven with each other, especially even more so, I feel, on Branches Volume 2. Now, you said a lot of this music was done in 2018. Tell me about the process of really, packaging this and doing all of this, getting it ready to come out June 18th during a pandemic, no less. Like, what has that been like for you?
Um, yeah. Well, we recorded in December 2018, and we had 2 days in the studio, 6 hours on both days, and we just recorded everything that we had, and it was 12 tracks. And I was envisioning some of the tracks I will not release it. I will just have one album out of this session, and but then I was editing and mixing, mastering. In the process, the engineer told me, "Well, you have all this music. You should release all of that." And I started thinking, oh, maybe I can share. Oh, but some of them I was not really um, sure that time. But then I was also talking to my musicians, and they some of them said that, oh, you're not releasing that track, So we
Uh-huh.
all worked so hard that we wanted to release. And so I decided to release in 2 volumes all the 12 tracks that we recorded in 2 days. Um, and then the pandemic started. So I had just 2 albums now haven't released. So I started working on it, and that was sort of a good timing that we all had the tracks already, because this music is needs some time to rehearse and
Yeah,
perform, and then, so that's how the timing worked out.
I see. So I'm glad we can expect a volume 3,
No,
hopefully.
this
No,
is
not
all
after
of
this.
it. Yeah, volume
Oh, this is
one and
all of it.
volume two. Yeah,
I see. So that's it after
yeah,
that's all from that
this
session
is
in
it.
December
Yes.
2018. I gotcha. I see. So, how has life changed for you? Coming, luckily, we're on the tail end of this pandemic, but how has life changed for you as a musician, personally, professionally, all of that?
Everything has changed. um well, I became mother right before the pandemic. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. So I have 15-month-old right now. And so that was a big difference. And the pandemic started right after. So yeah, it's hard to imagine separating that fact together. Only pandemic or just becoming a mother. But those two things were just changed everything about my life. And um, it's exciting because everything is new, but also I was in a big learning curve, and very sometimes frustrating, and
Very
yeah,
too, I'm sure. Like
yeah,
the unknown can be kind of scary sometimes.
right, yeah. But when this like frustration and unknown, like the fear for unknown, I think that creates something good out of it. So I've been writing music too. I'm recording some solo violin stuff, and because solo is a perfect thing to do now for musicians, because we can't really be together so much. I mean,
Right.
nowadays maybe you can, but because of the vaccines and stuff. But so I've been doing the solo violin, and I've been enjoying that process, and also I've been enjoying to the going to the park every day, and not sleeping through the night and everything.
Yes, I understand. I'm right there with you. Speaking of solo performance, you have performed a very special solo performance for us here exclusively for the Pulse. Can you introduce this for us?
Sure. The song is Melancholy of a Crane. It's from the volume two, the Branches volume two. And this is song about a crane who was rescued, which was rescued by a human, and the crane trying to give back to humans. And but to give back to the human, the crane makes a kimono garment out of her feather, and it takes pain to do. And at the end, she's almost lost her old feather, and it's very painful. And she was seen when she was making the garment as a form of a crane because she was. It's a long story short.
Yeah.
uh, she was appearing like a woman, but she was seen at the end as a form of crane, and the crane said, "Oh, you saw my actual form. I need to go." And it's just she flew away to the sky,
Oh,
and that's the end of the story.
interesting. Is this why I see a lot of cranes on kimonos? It comes from that story.
Oh, well, crane is a very popular favorite, one of the most favorite animals in Japan, and they considered crane is a symbol for a long life.
Oh,
They believe that crane lives for like 1,000 years. So yeah, crane is in everything,
I didn't know
in a
that.
lot of arts. Yeah.
Wow. So here it is, Melancholy of a Crane by Tomoko Omura, exclusively for the Pulse. That's beautiful. Sorry. Technical difficulty. Gorgeous. Thank you so much
Thank
for that.
you. Thank you.
Now, tell me honestly, is it weird like having to perform by yourself now? It's a new way of life. Have you gotten used to it?
um, it's not strange. I think solo performance is um solo performance, right? It's just it's strange to not have other option. I think that's what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
N-
Yeah. So. mm,
So now that everything is, slowly starting to open up, do you have opportunities that are on the horizon that you might be looking forward to?
Yeah, I've been getting a little more like an ensemble type of performances or recording thing happening. So that's great. Like I was in the other day I was in the rehearsal with someone in a room together with the strings, and I felt like, oh, this is what that was. I missed
Right.
that. Yeah, it's crazy. Um, yeah, I can't wait. Yeah,
Yeah.
I also try to perform with my band after the release. So I work on it, and yep, I have
Great.
to play with my band.
Well, we're absolutely looking forward to it. Branches Volume 2 is set to
Thank
release
you.
on June 18th. Tell everybody where they can get it. I know it'll be available on all digital media platforms, but tell us specifically how we can find out more about you, Tomoko, and all
Um,
that.
well, I have my website, um, tomokoomura.com, and also both albums, Branches Volume 1 and 2, are on Bandcamp. So you can find those there. I think it's going to be on Spotify as well, and all other platforms. But Bandcamp is my maybe favorite platform. So
Yeah.
I recommend that.
Tell me why. Is that because it's more artist friendly? I feel like people feel like they're better supported there. But
Yeah,
what?
better supported. Yeah, I feel like the people who who purchase my music through Bandcamp are real music fans. I feel the support and love from them more than Spotify playlist or I mean that's great too. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, in closing, I just want you to kind of uh, tell me, like, what do you feel like your mission, the thing that you are supposed to accomplish musically with your life, with your career? What would you say would be that thing that would make you feel like you're doing the thing you're supposed to do, if that makes sense?
Um, yeah. Well, you said to me in the beginning that I stayed true to myself. I thank you for saying that. That's I'm glad to hear that. But I think that's a very important part for me, and I want to grow as a human being, and I think that the music comes with it. So of course, I want to get better as an instrumentalist, um, and all that stuff. But also, I want to grow as a human, and I think I always find a lot of inspiration from life events and um, thoughts and philosophy and all that. So um, that to me the most enriching for me to write new music and connect to people. So um, I want to grow as a human, and I think now I'm a struggling new mother, but I think I think that part might help somehow. I think I'm struggling to find the time for myself, but I'm getting
Yeah.
maybe better at it. And yeah, I think I just need to be creating constantly. I think that's my goal.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, Tomoko Omura, so much.
Thank you, Keanna, for having me. Great
You're
to talk to you too.
you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here on the Pulse. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. We look forward to Branches Volume 2 on June
Thank you.
18th. And of course, keeping up with everything that you have going on. So thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for joining me here on this edition of The Pulse. Be sure to keep up with all things The Pulse at wbgo.org/The Pulse. And the celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month continues through the end of this month. And you can go online to wbgo.org to keep track of all that we have going on the right-hand side of your screen when you go to wbgo.org. It's called This Week on WBGO, and you can find out all the details there. Thank you guys so much. Have an amazing evening, and I'll see you next time. See you on the radio.